Good morning and welcome to Super Sunday Club. How are you? I hope you've had a good week and thank you for joining us again for this week's Sunday Club together. I hope you enjoy our activities today. So, I wonder how good you are at recognising people. Do you see a face and instantly you just know exactly who it is? Or do you have to scratch your head a bit till you remember? Well, we're going to start off with a little bit of a quiz. I'm going to put up some pictures of famous people, but it's when they're a child. Can you guess who they are? Here's our first one. Any ideas who this might be? He is quite famous and he's from a very famous family. Can you guess? Yeah, it's Prince Harry, isn't it? There he is as an adult. There's some similarities. Still got the same hair colour. How about this person? Who do you think this is? Let me give you a clue. It's a singer. She's American. Had quite a lot of hits recently. Do you know? Yeah, Ariana Grande. There she is. Do you think she's changed much? How about this next one? Now, this person, let's give you a clue, is a sports person. He is Scottish. Have you got it? A cheeky little smile. Yeah, it's Andy Murray. There he is as an adult. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So, this is probably more of a teenager than a child. Who do you think this is? Getting quite famous in the news a lot. Can you tell? Yeah, it's Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland. So, I don't know how you did on that. Did you get them all? Some of them were easier than others. In our story today, which is taken from the book of Luke, we hear about two people who just didn't recognise someone. Let's find out more as we watch the story unfold in this cartoon.
Two people, moving and marching, thinking, head scratching about something big that's just been happening. But on the road to Emmaus from Jerusalem way, two became three as another says, Hey, says he, you've been thinking and head scratching. Has something big just been happening? You've not heard about what's been happening? All of Jerusalem have been head scratching. What have I missed? Asks the man. I'd love to know, please tell if you can. It's about a man called Jesus, and we thought he was coming to rescue God's people and send the Romans off running. He did, and he said loads of cool stuff from a place up north called Nazareth. He told great stories and healed the sick. He knew people by name and what made them tick. Oh, remember that wedding? He turned water to wine, brought his friend back to life, and his friend felt just fine. He was sharing and caring, just ask his friend Pete. He walked on the water with only his feet. He said shush to the storm, and the storm was hushed. He did a miracle with bread, and thousands were stuffed. Besides all this, his sermon up a hill had so many stories, super cool and brill. I can't believe it. What a big loss. A man so great who hung on a cross, and on that cross, that's where he died. I feel so tied up in knots inside. And 3 days have passed, though it feels more like 70, 'cause now we've heard that his tomb is empty. That's right, you heard me. His body is gone. But who'd take his body? He never did wrong. You seem confused and out of the picture. So let me show you what it says in the scripture. It was always the plan, right from the start, because Jesus loved you with all of his heart. He died on the cross, but rose from the tomb. He came back to life so you can live too. And as they were moving, and still head scratching, Two of them stopped, but the third kept on marching. Hey, don't go, please, the two say. The sun's gone to bed, so why don't you stay? Good point, says the third. Day has turned to night. I'll stop over with you two and then grab a bite. And as they sit down to eat, they close their eyes. He thanks God for the grub, then what a surprise! The two people stare and then rub their eyes. It's Jesus, not gone, but fully alive. And before they say seconds, there's more bread going round. Jesus just vanishes. He cannot be found. The two are left thinking and really head-scratching. They'd just been with Jesus. Something big was happening. We must say we've seen Jesus, so tie up your shoes. Quick, to Jerusalem. There's no time to lose. All along, it was Jesus, the very same one. They were searching the scriptures with God's precious Son. It's the biggest story that's ever been told. About Jesus who's risen. It never gets old. The two met with Jesus in the most surprising way. They shared the story, and we still share it today.
And thanks to the Bible Society for that cartoon. I think it told well the story of two people who are very confused. They'd heard about Jesus being killed on the cross, and they'd heard mumblings of him being back alive. But it was all very confusing and too much to get your head around. And as they set off on their journey on that road to Emmaus, they didn't know they were going to be joined by another person. That person at first asked what was happening. And they couldn't believe that he didn't know. He hadn't heard about Jesus and how he'd been killed. And then the man started to explain things to them. He started to unfold the whole of the Bible to them and to show them just how God had this all planned. It wasn't a mistake that Jesus was killed. God had planned it. It wasn't a mistake that Jesus had come back to life. It was part of God's plan. God was in control. And as these people then realised, as they invited the person back for supper, he broke bread and it all just came flooding back to them. This was Jesus. How could they not have recognised him? And with that, Jesus disappeared. Well, what were they going to do but run to tell the others? We've seen him. He's alive. Jesus isn't dead. He is alive. It all makes sense. God had it all planned. God is in control. So we're going to do a little prayer activity now. For this, you're just going to need a piece of paper, if possible, a little bit of wool or string, and some colouring in pens. And we're going to think about these people and their journey that they went on, and how it took time for them to realise who Jesus was, to recognise him. And maybe we need to recognise Jesus around us, to know that he's with us and he'll never leave us. So the first thing we're going to do is draw around your foot on a piece of paper. The bigger the foot you have, the bigger the piece of paper. Draw around it and then cut it out. Then on your foot, you might need an adult to help you a little bit with this, because we're going to make some little holes to put the string or wool through. So I just used the tip of a biro pen, which was strong enough to get through the paper, so it wasn't too sharp, but it was enough to make 3 holes, and we're going to give it a sort of flip-flop look. So a little hole at the top of your toes, and then 2 holes a few centimetres down on each side of the foot. Then once you've done that, take 2 pieces of wool or string, And then again, I just use the tip of my biro pen to push the end of the wool through one of the holes at the side. And then I tied a little knot at the back, so you might need an adult to help you with that. Or you could just use a little bit of sellotape if that's easier. Then put the other end of that string through the top hole. And then you're going to take your second piece of string, and then this is when it gets tricky, is put the second piece of string through the top hole as well, and then the other side of that string to the other side of the foot. So you've now got a sort of like triangle effect, and hopefully it looks like a flip-flop a wee bit. Sandal. Now, on my flip-flop, I decided that I would write "Walk with Jesus." And that was just a little reminder and a little prayer that I would walk with Jesus in my life, that I would recognise him around me, that through reading the Bible and praying, spending time with other Christians and fellowship, that I would just get to know Jesus better. And that is my prayer for myself, and that's my prayer for you, that you would get to know Jesus better and walk with him. So then you can colour in your flip-flop, make it any funky design you would like, and then keep that as a little reminder. And each time you see it, just pray that you would recognise Jesus around you and that you would walk closely with him. So our next activity is going to be a little bit of a craft. For this craft, you're going to need a little bit of paper, some colouring in pens or crayons or colouring in pencils. You're going to need specific colours. You'll need yellow, black, red and green. I'll explain that later. And then either a stapler or some sellotape to stick together. And what we're going to make a little book. Now this is called the Wordless Book because this craft tells God's plan without any words. I shall explain as we go along. So first thing you need to do is, I have some A4 paper and we don't need that much, I just needed a strip of paper. So I cut that off and then I folded that into 6 pieces. And then I cut up the folds to create the pages for my book. So I took them together and I put 2 staples in it, just to hold them together. But if you have sellotape or something to hold them, the binding together, then that would be great. On the front page, I wrote the words, "The Wordless Book." We need a title cover, you see. After that, I promise you there are no words. And then on each page, I drew something in a colour to remind me of the story of God's plan for the world. So on the first page, I took a black pen and I drew a heart and I coloured it in. And that is a reminder of the bad things that were happening in the world, what we call sin, things that upset God, the things that hurt us and hurt other people. So that black heart is reminding me of the darkness of sin. On the next page, I took my red pen and I drew a cross and I coloured it in red. And that is to remind me that God's plan was for Jesus to die on the cross, that he would take the punishment for all the wrong things in the world, the sin of the world. He took it once and for all, even though he had done nothing wrong. That was part of God's plan. On the next page, I drew just in biro, or you can do it in pencil, the outline of a heart. And it's meant to be white in the middle. So I just didn't colour it in. And that is a reminder that when Jesus took the punishment for all our sin was taken away. And when we say sorry to Jesus, then that the blackness of our sin disappears. On the next page, I took my green pen and I drew a leaf. And that's a reminder of the new life that God promises through Jesus. that we can have new life in him. And then the last page, I took my yellow pen and I drew a crown. A reminder of the King of Kings, Jesus. Because he promises us, if we trust in him, that we will spend forever with him in heaven. And in the Bible, sometimes it describes heaven as being like a city of gold, hence the yellow colour. So that is our wordless book. And when we put it together, we have the whole story of God's plan. Now, the colours are really important because they help us. We remember the black was the sin and the bad things in the world. The red, which was God's death and his blood on the cross. The white, because we were made clean again and forgiven of all these bad things. Green for new life, and the yellow for forever promises. So hopefully you can share this with your family and tell them the whole story of God's plan. We're going to finish with a song, and it's called Our God is a Great Big God. If you're on Facebook, then the link will be above. If you're not, then all you have to do is Google Our God is a Great Big God, and hopefully you'll see this picture come up, and it's a song we're going to sing. I picked it because it has a great line in it which said, "How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan." And you know we are. We're part of God's amazing plan because he wants us to go and share what Jesus has done with other people. And maybe your wordless book can help you do that. So enjoy the song, and hopefully we can catch up again next Sunday. Have a good week. God bless. Bye. So here's my completed wordless book, so I can tell the good news of Jesus to others. When I open the first page, it takes me to the black heart, which reminds me that the world was full of sin. But God had a plan, and his plan was to send Jesus, who died on the cross, and by doing that he took a punishment for all the bad things that we'd done. It meant that the sin was gone, it had been forgiven, and we could be in a right relationship with God again. That means a new life and a promise of eternal life in heaven with God forever.